what is spirituality and how can I learn more about my spiritual self, or that part of you that a lot of people talk about, but we really don't have an understanding, or we're learning how to understand it better. Thanks for asking about what is spirituality. When I was a child, I didn't know much about spiritual issues. You just think about angels maybe, and God and heaven and earth and all that. But as you get a little older into the teen years, you might start wondering these questions that most people really do ask. And I heard a speaker once say there's no answer you're going to find on the internet. There's no answer you're going to find in a book anywhere or on Google to these questions. They're that interesting and they're that broad of questions that you can't even find an answer. So today's video is an opportunity, we like to do these free videos, an opportunity to explore 5 questions that can help you develop a stronger sense of your spiritual part or your spiritual side, and how you can start to play that out in your life and feel better about yourself, as well as maybe improve some of the behaviors that you're hoping to work through. If you like this video and you find it helpful, please subscribe, hit the like button, even send a comment, because that can help more people have access to the free help that we're providing here at Jeff Packer & Associates. In today's video, we have 5 really cool questions to help you develop your sense of spirituality and what your spiritual side is. By working through these questions, you can work through them right along with the video or perhaps afterward, but by working through them, we can develop a stronger sense of who we are, how we fit in our world around us, improve our emotional balance as well as our behavioral output, so you can have better relationships with people. So stay tuned for the last question out of the 5 as well, because that's a doozy. That's one people ask a lot, and answers to that question, as you fine-tune answers, and I'll help you work through some of the ways you can get answers to that question and the other ones as well, you will actually feel better about you, about yourself, about direction. It can increase your motivation and really help you to have better relationships with the people you care about, especially and starting with you yourself. Who am I? Probably one of the biggest questions that we will spend our whole life answering. You might have heard some of the, talk out there, some comments online about you are who you think you are, or you are who you believe you are. But that doesn't really fit with science. Neuroscience suggests that the data in our brain comes from all sources, books, movies, music. All the time we're growing up, data is being loaded on our brain. So some of that data will be accurate, or some of the information or thoughts will be complete. Some of them will be incomplete. Some of them are really off. So as we go through our life, we're trying to figure out who we are. And sorting through some of the information on our brain, we might think we're this, or we might think we're that. We might think we're just an angry person. We might think we're no good with numbers, we're no good with names. A lot of those might be interpretations that our brain made when we ran into trouble. But they have less to do with really who you are. So the question, who am I, is a deep spiritual question, and I would prefer to think of you as complex, as very, very amazing, amazingly created and amazingly formed, and look at all the abilities even a hand has. It's very difficult for even a tool on planet Earth to be as creative, as useful as someone's hand alone, never mind the whole body. So think of yourself as very complex, and as a lifelong process of looking at who am I and starting to figure out who we are individually. That big question is a tough one to answer, and so I would answer it sometimes like, well, I'm just this way, or I'm just not very thoughtful, or I'm just not very polite, or I've never been much of a social person. You hear that a lot with some of the isolation that's happened in the last few years. I'm not very social, or I'm really extroverted, or I'm really introverted. And of course, psychologists and testing suggests that yes, you can be locked into certain types of personalities, but we often forget to realize we can push out of that. Put that question on a piece of paper and start to explore or just brainstorm all the different parts that you are. You might have the creative part, the musical part, the mathematical part. Put down all the different parts. And it's easier then on a page to start to see, wow, it's very difficult to just summarize or shorten or reduce down who you are. Reducing yourself down through a definition can really limit all of us. So open up that. Next spiritual question would be, what happens when we die? A lot of people ask that. Some people don't call these spiritual questions either. You might refer to them as matters of existence or existential questions we all struggle with as part of being here on earth. So when it comes to what happens when we die, think of neuroscience again. Think of the thoughts on our head. How you and I start to think about anything, whether it's what happens when we die, who we are, why be good to people. These kind of spiritually founded questions, how we answer them will contribute heavily to how we feel. Whether we're anxious, nervous, whether we're calm, relaxed, confident, how we answer these questions. So what happens when we die? You hear people, well, nothing happens, that's it, it's all over. Might not sit well. Depends on how we think about it too. It might not sit well if we said it that short, kind of firm way. Or we might sit well, or better, if you said it like, well, this is one life, we have one life and that's it, and we need to make the best of it. That can still fuel a bit of anxiety and nervousness. However, it's a little nicer when it's said like that. What happens when we die? Some people grow up thinking about heaven and hell. I know I heard a lot about that. When we grow up, when we die, people get old or sometimes don't even live to an old age, die. What happens? And for children, a lot of times parents, whether they believed it or not, would sometimes tell children, well, your grandmother, your grandfather, somebody went to heaven, your puppy or your pet that's passed on now has gone up to heaven to a better place where there's no pain and lots of joy. That really does help people adjust and feel better about the passing of one life, that person they were close to or a pet they were close to. So how you and I think about that question and then how we answer it can help us to feel in a more balanced, calm and collected and confident way, or it can help us to feel more nervous and anxious and doubtful or hopeless. Why be good to people? Lots of people might say, well, it's good for you. Be good to people because it's a good thing to do, or it's the right thing to do. But really, I started thinking about that growing up. Why be good to people? Why can't I just be mean to people? Why can't I just be awful to people? If I'm feeling awful, why can't I be awful? Why should I be good to people? You can see that this is tipping on a spiritual question because it's bigger than a simple answer that comes from textbooks or the internet. Why be good to people? Just because it's the right thing to do? Oftentimes, we humans, require more motivation than that. So some people will choose to believe in a higher power. Some people might believe in God as a loving father, a loving entity, whether male or female, and most religions say that God's everything. So if you think of a maker as motivating and that we were made, wonderfully made by a maker, then of course that maker would want us to treat others the way we've been treated, which is lovingly if you just think about having life itself. Of course, life doesn't go well. It's hard to think of a maker as being a loving maker. Is death and dying something to be afraid of? Is it something to be okay with and to accept? And when we think of, your thoughts about death, imagine what life would be without death. Would it be as valuable? Would it be as amazing? So it's kind of like the yin-yang, the positive and the negative, they go together. And I heard one author say once, it's very hard to appreciate the mountaintop if you were never in the valley. That was more about, thinking about death and depression and how to come up and out of that if you were never depressed. Or if there was no death, it would be hard to appreciate life. How about the meaning of life? or why am I here? Those two are kind of similar. But why am I here might be your own personal purpose. And then what's the meaning of life might be the collective purpose for people on planet Earth, for society in general, or maybe just for your community. So let's deal with the first one. Why are you here? Why are you on planet Earth? Again, you're not going to hear me say this is why you're here, because it's a deep spiritual question and you can't find the answers to that on the internet. You're going to be exploring this as long as you're alive, as long as you're willing to explore it. Many, many days we don't think about these things, so that's okay too. Give yourself credit. You need other things to do. You want to have fun, you want to have family times, work. But from time to time, be okay with settling in and saying, why am I here? What's my purpose? How you arrive at an answer to that, whether you're 12 or 20 or 30 or 40, doesn't matter your age, arrive at an answer to that. And arrive at an answer that helps you feel good, helps you feel motivated, helps inspire you and give you energy to go out and help other people, using your gifts and strengths. So when you think of why am I here, it's less about selfish, what you can get, and more about what we can help other people with. What is your specific strength? What are your specific gifts, goals? What are you passionate about? And it could be something you're really frustrated about, which might be a hint as to how you can help yourself and others with that very issue. So the purpose of your life is an important spiritual question, and it's one that, again, is developing. Your answers are developing throughout your life. Take time, write that down. What are my gifts? What are my strengths? How could I help other people? And that might help you to fine-tune what you come to realize is your purpose, at least at this point in your life. Why be good to others? It's kind of like a purpose as well. Most of us know, I think, being good to others makes you feel good. So it's kind of like another video we did on altruism or helping others. Helping others helps you. So helping others is really kind of selfish because we get good feelings from it. So what's the purpose of being good to others? Well, lots of people would say, feels good. You feel better. Is that enough motivation? Probably not. When we're depressed or down or something bad has happened, maybe we've lost a loved one or we're hurting, we've lost a job. Perhaps, we've separated recently and divorced and we're in the pain and sorrow of that and adjusting. Then it's hard to think, why be good to others? It's hard to even think about being good to others. Stop. Be careful not to stop being good to others, because that will eat away at us. It will eat away at our thought patterns. Your emotions can start to decline down into the more excessive kind of sadness, depression, especially nervousness and anxiety. I wasn't a very nice youth or teenager, had a lot of conflict in the family and grew up not being so nice to people. And in a way, I'm glad I learned how awful it is to be hurtful to people, how much it hurts you, how much it hurts them. And I think you've done that too. I think most of us, by the time we're 8 or 10 years old, have been kind of hurtful to people and realize it doesn't make us feel any better for much longer than the minute or two that we're actually feeling righteous and maybe a little more energy. So why be good to others? Science is pretty clear. You get endorphins, it changes your biochemistry, you feel more energetic. Lots of reasons to be good to other people. And then there's also that spiritual question. What if, you were created? What if you and I were created by some loving maker out there and that entity gave us life? Well, that must be for some reason, and it might be actually to help others and to be kind and even to train how to be kind and more loving and encouraging and polite and friendly. Think about how hard that is when you're under duress. So whatever stage you're at in life, be kind to yourself. Look in the mirror. Give yourself that graceful, patient, loving, caring look. Yes, life is hard. Validate that. Normalize it. But look at yourself with a twinkle and with a love for the person you are, even though we might not fully know who we are, like we're talking about in the video. And then point out a few things that you're working on to be nicer to those people around you, whether it's friends, family, loved ones, or your community, your colleagues. These are opportunities for us to grow spiritually when we really physically and mentally feel like not being nice, to take in some oxygen and be nice anyway. This is the one that I think I've been asked the most, and I asked it a lot until my maybe mid-30s or got to be about 40. Even believing that there is a creator that loves me and created me, and I certainly didn't create me, and I haven't met anybody else that can just whip up a hand or an eyeball from scratch. I think, wow, what a loving creator to give me life. And it took me a long time to get there. Maybe 20, 30 years to get there. Wow, what a loving life, what an opportunity. But even then, I'm thinking, how can there be a God, or how can there be some loving creator that people talk about? How could there be a God if such awful things happen on planet Earth? Well, I'm tuning into the radio station one day on a drive back from Peterborough here in Ontario, and a speaker says this: imagine if you were that creator. Imagine for a second you're that creator and you create all kinds of beautiful mountains, trees, rivers, planets, stars, and you created humans and you forced them to love you. Would that be love? And as I'm driving along, I never thought of that. Maybe you've never thought of that. How could any creator create us amazingly, hands, limbs, eyeballs, fingers, all kinds of digits, able to walk and run and smell and taste and touch, and remember just about all of that in our brain, and yet not give us a choice? Can you imagine? Make us love as opposed to give us choice. True love is freedom of choice. You've been given a choice, I've been given a choice to choose poor behavior or loving behavior. And most of this video today has talked about that. Spirituality, and how your spiritual self is connected to your thinking, but also connected to your emotion. Your spiritual part is most obscure. People don't want to talk about it. People can get in big arguments about it. Why on earth would a God let awful things like children dying and, human trafficking and just the awful atrocities that happen on the planet? Well, we do tend to learn a lot from those atrocities. We do tend to have an opportunity to grow and develop out of them, but that's not totally why. I think that author was correct, or the speaker that I was listening to. We've been given complete choice. So even if you don't feel like you have complete choice, think about that. Wake up in the morning and say, I have the choice today to be good, to behave well, to be kind and loving to people. I have the choice to go out and be unkind, unloving, unforgiving. And I think you already know. You wouldn't even be here exploring ways to figure yourself out if you hadn't figured out you're worth it. You do have an amazing person there, and deep inside and all around you. Your person is complex, and we're all figuring out who we are. To say for sure this is who I am, watch it. It could be a bit of a trap. So if there is a loving entity that created all of us out there, some people might call that person God or the Buddha, what have you, then think about that. What would the purpose be? And what value would that be? Would that person want you to develop a relationship with yourself that's helpful, healthy, with them that's helpful and healthy, with your loved ones? I would say yes. So when you're thinking about spirituality and how it fits with your life, think about these 5 questions. Who am I? What happens when we die? Why be good to one another? Why do bad things happen? And what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning for you and for life in general? Think about those with an open mind. Brainstorm, jot them down on paper. And gradually over the years, those questions have helped me and helped many people start to fine-tune that spiritual aspect, and at least allow yourself to go into those conversations with yourself and others in a way that's open, flexible, and caring and kind. So if you like this video today, if you think it'll be helpful for you or anyone else, please do hit subscribe, click on the notification button, or even send a comment, because those actions will help, Google send it out to more people, and hopefully more people can get some help. So thanks again, I'm Jeff Packer, and remember, you take care out there.